Hi, this is Jeff Georgeson with Quantum Tiger Games, and today I'm going to be showing you how to integrate our Extreme AI personality engine with Rival Theory's popular RAIN AI engine. In particular, I'm going to show you how to integrate our personality engine into the behavior trees of Rival Theory's Sentio characters. I will be using a couple of minotaurs here, and I'm assuming that you've already imported the Sentio characters and the RAIN AI engine, and that you've also imported our Extreme AI engine as well. In this case, I'm just going to be using Extreme AI Lite, which doesn't give you as many stimulus response types to choose from and has some other limitations, but it will work for this demonstration. So what I've already done is I've gone ahead and dragged a couple of Minotaur prefabs into the scene, and they show up here. If you go to their AI rig, you can see various defaults for the Minotaurs, including that their alignment is neutral. And you can just hit play, and these Minotaurs will wander around kind of on patrol is their basic default behavior. And they're kind of ignoring each other, really. You can, just using RAIN, cause them not to ignore each other. If, for instance, you make one of them good and the other one evil, they will use this basic alignment information to immediately attack each other. And as you can see, they're beating each other up. But let's say you wanted to use the more sort of fine-grained personality system used in Extreme AI to decide whether or not they attack each other. Say, for instance, you wanted to have them decide whether to attack each other based on the level of kindness that they feel towards their fellow Minotaurs, regardless of whether they're good or evil in alignment. And I realize that having an evil Minotaur that is also very kind might be kind of rare, but let's go ahead and do that for this demonstration. The first thing you would need to do is go into Extreme AI and create a couple of character personalities for these Minotaurs. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to create a Minotaur personality. Let's do Minotaur 1 for the first one. And we're going to make sure that this Minotaur feels very, very kindly. And notice that if changing their kindness level, of course, changes the rest of their personality to sort of match that. We're going to save that character. And then we're also going to create Minotaur 2. And to start off with, we're going to do the same thing so that we have a couple of very kindly Minotaurs. Save that character. And then what we need to do is make sure that these personalities are actually connected to these two character models. In order to do that, I would go into Extreme AI, or actually what I would do is create a script in the same folder as our tape library. In this case, I've already created a script called NPC interface. This is very much like the NPC interface script in our quick start guide, where you go ahead and you create a script that's using our library, and you create an AI char info that will give you access to the character's personality. And you also create a name. that you will use to access that personality. The name has to match the personality that you just created, or the name on the personality that you just created. In this case, what I've also done is created this method that can be called then from an action within the behavior tree, and it will go ahead and check kindness for these minotaurs. So, having created this script, I then need to actually put copies of it on the two minotaurs. So I drag it onto that minotaur prefab, and we'll call that one minotaur 1 to match the name on the personality. And then this one, I do the same thing, and I will call that one minotaur 2. And make sure I spelled it right. So, once you have attached the personalities, you can then go into the Minotaur's behavior tree and note that they actually use the same behavior tree, both of them do. And I'm going to go ahead and go down to where they would normally attack, which is a ways down. And right now, their attacks are based on checking whether or not their current enemy, or checking whether or not they have an enemy to attack. And within that, in order to get to that point, rather, they use a check enemy script that is within the Minotaur behavior. Here, I'm going to go ahead and close that for a moment. They use the check for enemies script. Now, just quickly, within the check for enemies script, they check the alignment and decide, like, whether or not the alignments of this character and whatever other characters in the scene match or are good versus evil or that sort of thing, and whether or not their aggression is high enough to attack each other. In this script, we have added a line that creates another little variable that is going to get the actual game object of the enemy, because when we run Extreme AI, it checks against the actual character that you're running a personality check sort of with or against. So, for instance, if Minotaur 1 really has a lot of, he's really kind, but in addition to that, he's had a lot of really pleasant experiences, hanging out with the other Minotaur, then he will be much more likely even to be kind than he would normally. This is the kind of thing that Extreme AI does over time, where, in particular, like when you're checking NPCs against player characters, the more, say, good experiences they've had with the player character or negative ones, or if they've had a lot of instances where they've started to feel more and more jealous of the player character, they will actually behave more intensely towards that character than they do towards just an average stranger. So anyway, going back to this line is just a way to create a variable called enemy object that gets the name of the Minotaur, in this case Minotaur prefab or prefab 1, gets the name of the game object. Right. So That was a little long-winded, sorry. But what we can do is go back to that behavior tree and go down again to attack. I'm going to create an action, and actually, you know what? I'm going to create the action. Well, I'm going to try to create the action up here and then move it, because sometimes the script is very long and I'd have to do a lot of scrolling. So I'm going to create a custom action, and I'm just going to move it there. And in this action, I'm going to go over, and what you would need to do is create a custom action. In this case, I've already created it, but if you go to custom action, create custom action, you could go ahead and type in the action name and the script type and then hit OK. I'm going to use the one that I have previously prepared, which will be kind check. And in this, whenever you do a custom action, RAIN gives you a sort of RAIN action class, and you're going to go into the action result method and do whatever you want to do with it, and then it will need to return success or failure. In this case, I just want it always to succeed in doing what it's doing. So we're going to call rather the minotaur, which in this case is, you can get the local, you can get the game object to which the personality is attached by doing ai.body, and then get the component, get the NPC interface component, and call the AmiKind method. We're going to send along who that enemy object is as well, which is what we did in the check for enemies line that we added. And then we're going to create another variable that we can then check called kindness using that AmiKind return. AmiKind will be an integer between 0 and 4, with 0 meaning that they're like the opposite of kind, and 4 meaning that they're kind to absolutely everything. And we've kind of made these two minotaurs maybe not kind to absolutely everything, but pretty darn kind. In this case, I'm also just printing to the debug log this same information, just as a check against what we're doing, but obviously you wouldn't need to put that in. And then we go back. Now, the fact that I've called that action and done that, created that variable, doesn't mean anything, because we're not actually checking it. So I need to add one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and add an expression. And in that expression, I am going to check whether the variable we just created, so kindness, I'm going to check whether kindness is, say, less than or equal to 2, which would be a middle of the road kind of kindness. In that case, we're going to say the fact that they're good or evil will override any kindness that they have. But if they're at a kindness level of 3 or 4, then they're going to be like, hey, well, I'm not going to attack you. So, and we have that evaluate. It will evaluate to either succeeding or failing. And if in fact the kindness is really high and it fails, it will skip the rest of the attack section. So, now let's see if this all works. I'll go ahead and close that. And I will go ahead and hit play. And now they run right up to each other because they're good versus evil. They're going to, go up and say, hey. But notice that they're not attacking each other. And now, if we want to change that behavior, let's say one of them's really kind and the other one is not. So let's, for fun, let's try to spell things. Let's make Minotaur 2 a lot less kind. But we're going to go ahead and leave Minotaur 1 at a high level of kindness. And let's see if they act differently to one another. And yes, one of them is so kind he's just going to stand there and take it. And the other one ran up and attacked, and he's going to run up and attack again. And what you'd probably want to do is set something up so that the one really kind Minotaur doesn't stand there and sort of turn the other cheek forever until he gets killed. But you can have him do that if you like. And then, of course, if I went in and said, oh, wait a minute, I don't want these Minotaurs to be that kindly to one another, I could go ahead and go in, and oops, I want to change both of them to be low in kindness now. And now if you hit play, they should just run up and both attack each other again. And they are. So, thank you very much. That's just a simple example of how to integrate Extreme AI with the RAIN AI engine. And thank you very much for listening.